The Fantastic Four First Steps is an inoffensive enough movie that no one will hate it, and it's really hard to imagine that anyone's going to love it. And if they say they do, they'll probably have forgotten about it in about 2 months by the time it hits D+. I think on the surface, most audiences will enjoy the first 75% of the movie. They'll like the performances, they'll enjoy the actors' chemistry, they'll appreciate the visual effects and the soundtrack. And then you get to the third act, which is an absolute unmitigated disaster. And then, like many movies that come out right now, the longer you think about it, the more you're like, oh, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. And all this movie really does effectively is pay some lip service to interesting concepts without ever actually doing anything interesting. It tells you that Johnny Storm is a womanizer, but you don't really see it. It tells you that Mr. Fantastic is a genius before he carries out ridiculously dumb plans. It tells you that the Thing is really introspective and interesting, but does nothing with it. And this is kind of the thing that the entire movie does, where it pretends like it's going to do something interesting and then pulls back. In a quest to be inoffensive to everyone, it tries a little bit of everything and does nothing. Everything about the movie feels like one of those corporate apologies that celebrities make, where they give these vague platitudes about how they're so sorry that they might have hurt or offended anyone ever and stepped on a blade of grass. Everything this movie does feels like it's just saying, please don't hate us. You don't have to like us, but just don't hate us. And like I said, I think most people will buy into it and think it's a really interesting movie, at least on a first watch, until you realize that it doesn't do anything with the concepts that it briefly mentions and then resolves. It just kind of exists. I'm going to talk about a couple meta things at the end because that's my least favorite stuff, but I do think it's relevant to this movie. So let's just get into it. There'll be spoilers. So the gist of the movie, the Fantastic Four, 4 years ago, got turned. We get a nice little montage of them becoming beloved, becoming heroes. Way better than Superman with a fucking TLDR text box on the screen to begin the movie. I'm not going to go in a huge sidebar here, but I think Superman would have benefited greatly from a montage of him kicking ass before he gets his ass kicked for 80% of the movie. Anyway, so we get this montage. They're beloved. We get it. Mr. Fantastic and Sue Storm are pregnant. They thought they were infertile. Great. The Silver Surfer shows up, says you're all doomed, and leaves. The Human Torch chases her, and this allows him to record some dialogue in her language, which will be very important as the movie goes on. They fly out to where they can trace her to. And something that pisses me off throughout this entire movie is they use light speed and they're traveling across galaxies, but they don't care about relativity. If you travel at light speed, everything else ages a lot. And this movie completely ignores that, which is really frustrating considering that it's supposed to be a pretty science-based group here. Anyway, they go talk to Galactus. You get some exposition along the way where Silver Surfer reveals that she's Galactus' scout and she just picks the planets that he eats. They see him eat a planet. He says, I want your kid. Your kid can take over my hunger and I can finally die. Reed and Sue say no. They make an escape, which frankly I find unbelievable. But they escape. They trap Shalabal / the Silver Surfer in a black hole, and this buys them a month. They get back home. Pedro Pascal, in a never-ending quest to look like he's always going to cry, tells them they're all screwed and they're not giving up their son. We get like 5 minutes of intrigue here where people are like, hand over the baby, we just want to live. Obviously the math is justified, blah, blah, blah. And then Sue gives a speech and they say, oh, we're good now. And then Sue and Reed have kind of a half-ass fight and then they're good. Oh, and by the way, Sue has their baby during their escape from the Silver Surfer and Galactus. I don't know what this trend is of having very, very pregnant women in big action scenes, but it's happening a lot, including Squid Game Season 3. It's very impressive that all these super pregnant women are capable of also being badasses. Anyway, the Fantastic Four decide that they're going to teleport the whole planet, and the whole world's on board. Huzzah. So they build all these towers, they need all the power, a bunch of sci-fi mumbo jumbo. Fine, it's a comic book movie. And of course, they do a 20-second countdown, and in this 20 seconds, the Silver Surfer is fast enough to destroy literally every single tower, except she's nice enough to leave the one in New York because it's plot convenient. The Human Torch talks to her. He has somehow translated her entire language by himself, from like 2 sentences, talks to her in her language. She realizes that she's been a bad girl. I guess the billions of lives she ended before that did not make her realize. So she feels bad, cries, and leaves. Not sure what they're trying to say about women there, but make of that what you will. Reed says, okay, we have one teleporter left. Instead of teleporting Earth far away, let's teleport Galactus far away. Eventually, Galactus shows up. Their plan is to bait Galactus with their baby to the teleporter, which has a very visible, like Looney Tunes dynamite stick switch right next to it, and then swap the car seats out like he won't notice. So he walks right up to it and then stops because it's very obvious. And it's actually so dumb that I thought, oh, they must have like a second trap planned, because he's super smart. He would never do something so belligerently retarded that you figure it out immediately and it makes no sense. But he did. And Galactus, luckily, very nice guy, surprisingly, for a planet eater, doesn't destroy this teleportation thing that can send his giant purple ass across the universe. So he goes and grabs the baby. He just butt fucks Mr. Fantastic, the Thing, and the Human Torch. And then Sue Storm pretty much solos him and pushes him back with her psychic shit into the teleporter bubble. The Thing collapses a skyscraper. The other ones are able to rescue the baby. And Galactus isn't quite all the way in, so the Human Torch is going to sacrifice himself. But then the Silver Surfer pulls a Rose Tico. She rams him out of the way. It's kind of played like a comedic beat. And then she boops Galactus into the teleporter bubble, and then those two disappear to regions unknown. Sue's now dead, quote unquote. This goes on forever. It's like that fucking Deadpool 2 joke where he's pretending to die for the whole time. Reed puts the baby on Sue Storm. She gets purpley eyes like Galactus and then is alive. I'm assuming she's Sue per duper Storm now. Huzzah. They're all saved. Everyone wins. Yeah. We jump 4 years later because everything in this movie is based on fours. Haha. Sue goes to grab a book for Franklin, their kid, and Dr. Doom is there. I guess he can teleport too. I don't know. He's just in the fucking house. And that's the movie. I've seen a lot of people praising this movie, including critics that I like. And I think this is really just reflective of it not being offensively bad. It's just regular bad. It pretends like it's going to do shit and then just never does. It doesn't do anything interesting. We get a little bit of lip service about the Human Torch self-sacrificing. That ends in like 2 seconds. He actually tries to self-sacrifice. That ends in like 2 seconds. Pedro Pascal looks like he's going to burst into tears at any moment. The Thing just kind of exists. Galactus, for this super duper old, crazy villain, planet destroyer, kind of seems just like a big oaf. The Silver Surfer flips on a dime because all of a sudden she realizes she's bad. It's horrendous. To me, this movie is maybe the best one of July because I thought Rebirth and Superman were really, really not good. And this one is like just not good as opposed to that. I did want to mention a couple of meta things because I think they impacted this movie in pretty negative ways. If you follow MCU reviews or whatever, you've probably heard people say things like MCU or it's woke or blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go that far because I don't care about that stuff. But the movie does make a point to have the men be kind of losers and the women save the day. And you have to wonder if that was built into why they casted a female Silver Surfer, if that's why they casted Pedro Pascal as Mr. Fantastic. The best part of his performance was pretending to be a heterosexual, loving father, equivalent to when the Joker called Maggie Gyllenhaal beautiful. Shia LaBeouf has no real depth, and then suddenly you're supposed to feel bad for her. They didn't do anything to build up for her turning against Galactus. She just kind of does after one conversation, as if she didn't realize that what she was doing was killing billions of people. And I think it would have been smarter if they had shown her not really seeing the results of what she did, but because you had the Fantastic Four fighting against her, she can see the personal connection. She sees that they have a kid of their own like she did. You can do something to put in some effort instead of just, well, Johnny said that you're bad, so now you realize it. It's so lazy. The movie wants to have themes about kind of self-sacrifice and heroism, and it can say it all at once. But what it shows is more of a message of you can have everything if you try hard enough. Sue Storm has superpowers. She's obviously very attractive. She becomes a very famous politician. She saves the day at the end. She has a family. Like, she literally has it all. Obviously, the same can be said for Reed. He gets to keep doing his science. He's a hero. He has a son. Human Torch, similar deal. The Thing doesn't even really get enough screen time to be called a main character, frankly. But this movie really just tells you what it wants to be be, and then just kind of does whatever it wants. So I think most people will fall for it on the initial watch through. And then when you watch it later, when you think about it later, you'll be like, oh, it doesn't actually do any of the things that it's saying. Great performances, great aesthetics, visuals, soundtrack. I thought Ralph Ineson as Galactus was awesome, but it's just another middling movie being overpraised because everything else is such dog shit. Everything about this movie reeks of just please don't hate me. And that's what you get. Something pathetic and stupid that you'll forget in a couple months. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there for this one. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you think. I try to respond to the comments that aren't just insults. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.